A third place within retail that is particularly important from a real-time and large data set standpoint is inventory levels. And I talked a little bit about merchandising and some of those elements like pricing, but quantity of inventory in real time is also something that is extremely important. And particularly as more consumers are using e-commerce and online retail resources to actually support a physical store transaction, it's important to make sure that that omni-channel data is as accurate and as transparent as possible. And this is just an example from the Home Depot site, which I actually think is one of the retailers that does what they do better than virtually anybody else. And this is really about supporting the e-commerce experience, but also, where possible, supporting that physical store experience as well. And what they have on virtually every product detail page is that they have local store data for what they're estimating to be whatever is the closest store that a shopper may be interested in. The shopper, of course, has the ability to change that designation if they want. But it also lists how many units are available and down to a specific location within the store where some of that content is available as well. And this is something that is, as I'd mentioned, increasingly sought after from an e-commerce solution standpoint. And this is not something that's easy to execute because it requires a lot of really doing things well and accurately from a store operation standpoint, but also capturing data and having systems in place to remediate any issues that could be happening that are driving any inaccuracies, and to constantly be auditing data points, to constantly be digging into making sure that the information is as accurate as possible. And this requires lots of different data sources. It can change within an hour, that therefore the real-time element is extremely important. Product can move around, and to be able to have all of that accurate is something that helps not just the shopper experience, but also the store associate experience. And it just adds more ability even for those retailers, for instance, that fulfill their online orders from stores, to have that accuracy can also help essentially, your stores become warehouses. It's something that retailers have always struggled with because this level of accuracy is not really there, but if you can, that's even better. Now, we also know that from a consumer standpoint, that this is extremely important. This is just some data that we'd collected from Forrester through the surveys, the consumer surveys that we did, asking shoppers what are the most important things that they look for on a website. And it's not surprising that things like estimated time of arrival or product information or ratings and reviews show up at the top of the list. But also at the top of the list is that real-time inventory information that I'd alluded to earlier. So consumers want this. This is about improving the customer experience. This is essential. It requires getting your data in good shape. It requires taking lots of data points and making it as accurate as possible. And then, of course, having really, really strong operations so that the information that's ultimately transmitted on a website is accurate and is not subject to a lot of errors. Now, when we are talking about recommendation engines, that is one of the other areas that consumers are extremely eager to have on a website. And it's something that consumers like because, as I'd mentioned earlier, it provides alternatives if they're out of stocks. It helps to create upsells and cross-sells if consumers need supplementary products. And there are any number of places that we've seen e-commerce companies really leaning into those recommendations. It can be anywhere from content on a website to promotions and product offerings. You'll also see recommendations on reminders, alerts, and within mobile content as well. So what is important to keep in mind here is that as an industry, we certainly see recommendations being an industry standard. It's a critical part of the full end-to-end e-commerce experience. We're used to seeing recommendations often on product detail pages, but to circulate that same amount of content in real time, based on what consumers may have a preference for, based on what may be in stock at this moment in time from an inventory standpoint, what may be relevant based on what consumers right now happen to be looking for, interested in. It could be due to day parting. It could be due to weather-related issues. It could be related to night versus day. All of those elements, and to be able to circulate that information on home pages, through emails, checkout pages, all the different touch points is incredibly important. And it does require lots of the ingesting of lots of different data points, and to do it in a manner where algorithms are most useful to shoppers at the end of the day. But we know that these are valued by customers, and the more that these recommendations are surfaced, the more that consumers are likely to engage with those recommendations and ultimately complete transactions from them.